Hey guys, it's Felicia bringing out from feliciasworld.com here, and I'm going to show you how to make reusable bags today. With all this news that are coming out about plastic, pollution problems in our oceans and waterways and so forth, I'm making a concerted effort to reduce the amount of plastic that is in our household. And one of the first things that I looked at is our kitchen, and we have three kids in the house who make school lunches. None of them do something as normal as make a sandwich. So we have three kids who all want, slices of salami and baby carrots and crackers and pretzels and other little like finger foods basically in little baggies. That's what they want for lunch. And that means that every day, every kid uses at least four plastic bags in order to make their lunch, and that just goes in the trash. And that just makes me feel terrible. So, in an effort to reduce plastic waste, I started making some reusable snack bags. I will not claim that I'm inventing the wheel here, but I'm going to walk you through the steps that I'm taking to make snack bags and talk a little bit about dimensions and so forth that I'm using. So these snack bags have zippers. You can certainly make them with in a different design with Velcro, but I like the zippers because you don't have any spill. And then they're lined with PUL, so that's a polyurethane lining on the fabric, and that means that for all intents and purposes these are, waterproof. I wouldn't put applesauce in them, but they certainly will be waterproof for things like apple slices and carrots and so forth. And that's also easy to clean. When I was making bags, I wanted to reduce the amount of laundry that I do. So I wanted to make enough bags eventually that I had enough for all the kids to make lunches for the entire week. And so I figured I needed about 15 or 16 bags per kid at the very minimum. And so I made mine in batches of 10s and 6s, depending on the size fabric cut that I had to work with. And I'm also working out of my stash. And one of the things that I feel like I've seen and heard so many times is like, oh, are you using organic cotton for your reusable snack bags because that's more environmentally friendly? And I just want to point out that the most environmentally friendly thing you can do is to use the stuff you already own. So if you want to go out and buy organic cotton for your snack bags, be my guest. There's lots of beautiful organic cottons out there. But if you have a little stash of quilting fabrics laying around, the most environmentally sensitive thing to do would be to use what you already own, and reduce, waste and production that way. And no matter how organic the cotton is very water intensive. It is fertilizer intensive. It is transport and processing intensive. So there's no way that cotton, even organic cotton, is all that environmentally friendly. So anyways, that being said, I think the real gain here is that these bags are reusable, and so I figure although there is plastic in the zipper and there is certainly plastic in the, I'm assuming polyurethane is a plastic, it still will reduce waste because these should be able to be used for a really long time. So I wanted to do laundry once a week, so I made a whole bunch, and I also made them in different sizes. So when I show you how to do these today, I will suggest some dimensions for you, but my thinking is that, if you're going to put almonds in your lunch, you don't need this thing to put almonds in. Like, this is actually a better size. Or we have kids in elementary school and they don't eat as much as a lumberjack. So the smaller size bags are, I think, nice, but also you get 6 of these to a fat quarter. So if you're dealing with quilting cotton in your stash, this is really efficient in terms of using fat quarters to make them a little bit smaller. So these were the 2 first batches that I made. I made 6 of each of these from 2 different fat quarters. And then I made these, and I had some really beautiful leftovers from a fabric company called Mona Luna. This is organic cotton, I believe. So I made these, and then I also made some Japanese inspired ones. These are actually going to be a gift for my daughter's teachers for Teacher Appreciation Day, and also some little bigger ones with bunny rabbits on it, also Japanese. So that's what I've been working on so far. And when we're working today, I'm gonna use this fabric is from my stash. It's a cotton and steel. I have a 1/2 yard cut of it. And when you're picking your fabric, it's okay if it's directional in one direction, but you want your fabric is going to wrap around. So it's going to be, if it's completely directional, it will be upside down somewhere. So this will work great because it has the words, you know, going both ways on the print here. So I usually go in batches of 6, and here's my zippers that I've selected for this. If you're trying to be a little bit economical, I would suggest going and looking for zippers on Etsy.com. I found a really nice vendor there who sold me zippers. They ended up being, I think, roughly 50 cents a pop, maybe even a little bit less. And that is so much more economical than going to Joann's or another sewing store and getting zippers. So if you're going to make, you know, 30 or 40 lunch bags for a big family, snack bags, it's better to get, you know, 50 zippers for $13 than to get them for $3.50 a pop at Joann's. So these are the zippers that I'm using. And as far as your dimensions are concerned, I will probably cut these about 7 by 10 inches or so when I'm cutting the fabric. And the thing to keep in mind with your zippers is that your zippers need to be longer than the width of your cut for the fabric bag. In other words, these are pretty narrow. They're about 4.5 inches now. I use 6-inch zippers. These are 9-inch zippers, and I will use probably a 7-inch cut of fabric. So you want your zipper to be longer than the width of your fabric cut. And then the lining is PUL. This is basically what they make cloth diapers with too. And this fabric has a little bit of stretch to it, so it does tend to want to expand a little bit in the sewing process, I've noticed. So when I cut my PUL, I'm always going to cut it 1/4 of an inch shorter than the length of the cut for the bag. So I'm going to cut them the same width. So if they're going to be 7 inches wide, your bag is going to, you know, you're going to cut 7 and 7. But if this is going to be 10 inches long, I'm going to cut this 9 3/4. So it's always going to be that little bit of a 1/4 inch, and it just reduces bulk in the finished bag. So I'm going to demo that for you so you can see that in person. Okay, so we're ready to cut the fabric, and to be honest with you, what I do when I'm doing this for my own sanity, we have a selvage here I need to get rid of, and I'm layering things double. This is not a super accurate process, or you know, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm going to cut these at 7, and that will mean that my finished bag will be just about 6 inches wide, which is, you know, a good size. And I think I'll make another cut here while I'm at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say I'm making 4 right now. What I will actually do when I am cutting these is that I'll look at what I have here in terms of fabric, and I will decide if I can actually get 2 bags, and they will just be, you know, a different dimension bag, and it doesn't really affect the functionality, as assuming you're not trying to fit a sandwich into these. If you're fitting a sandwich in, I suggest you pay a little bit more attention to your measures. But in my case, it doesn't really matter if the bags are a little short or a little long and narrow, as long as the kids can fit their snacks in there. So I could conceivably cut this in 2 equal lengths and get bags that will probably be wider than they're tall when they're done, but that's okay. It might actually just mean that the pretzels are easier to reach. So I'll probably just do something like this, and that can be really cute. And if you don't want to make your bags that dimension, then you change it. This is actually also a good way to use up scraps if you have sort of smallish pieces of quilting cotton laying around that you don't know what to do with. It's great to dedicate them. So now essentially when these bags are done, you know, you're gonna have this, you'll have a zipper here. So you'll have a bag that is you know, pretty shallow and probably more envelope formatted than anything else, but I think that's great. So that's how I'm gonna cut mine. That means I'm getting 6 bags out of, or 8 bags actually, out of these 4 strips. So good use of fabric. Okay, so here is my bag outer, and here's the PUL lining, and now we're gonna get ready to work the zipper, and we're gonna do sort of a really easy zipper technique. I'm the kind of person who's very proud if I can put in the zipper, so this is not going to be like a complicated way of doing it. It's going to be as foolproof as possible. So you're going to start by putting your outer fabric right side up. Here's your zipper. Notice again that the zipper is, oh, I guess I could have picked a slightly longer zipper. Let's see if I can find one here. I thought these were 9 inches. They're probably 7 inches. That's okay. It's just a little bit more cumbersome to sew them in, but it will actually still work. So they're longer than the fabric. Like ideally, I would have had an extra inch here, but this will work just fine. So basically, you're gonna take your zipper and you're gonna place it face down on the top fabric, and you're gonna make sure the ends of the zipper are outside of the width. And then the PUL has a kind of plasticky side, and then one that shows the weave. The side that shows the weave is actually probably a knit, but whatever, is the wrong side of the PUL. So you can take the PUL right side down so that zipper is sandwiched up here, and then we're going to pin this in place so the zipper is sandwiched in. And this is actually a great beginner project. If I wasn't a little worn out on kids sewing right now, I would probably have my daughters make their own lunch bags, because this isn't that hard to do. They probably would need a little help with the zippers, but can you imagine how proud they would feel using this at school and kind of saying, I made them myself. So my little ones that have been using their bags have been getting a lot of compliments and questions from their friends, since they're now eating lunch out of these really cool, interesting bags. And so what I find too is that when you're, when I stick all of them in the laundry on Friday night, I put them in a lingerie bag to wash inside out, and then I don't tumble dry them because that will melt the PUL. So I just let them air dry, and then they're ready to go again. So we pinned this, and now we're going to sew this on the sewing machine. Notice also, while I have this pinned here, that I cut the PUL a bit shorter than the outer fabric, and that will make it a little bit easier later on to put everything together. So in order to do this, we do need to put a zipper foot on our machine, and let's see here. And then on this machine, I have to change the needle position so I don't hack the needle right into the foot. Okay, and now we should be ready to go. I think it's kind of important not to sew over your pins and risk breaking your needle, so I'm going to stop. So see, can you see how the foot is kind of hitting the zipper there? If the zipper was a little bit longer, the foot wouldn't hit, and so starting your sewing would be a little bit smoother, but honestly, it's going to be perfectly fine. It's not going to make any difference in the final project. So I'm going to just start sewing. I don't really bother starting or fastening because we're going to sew over these seams afterwards anyways. And if things move a little bit while you're sewing too, let's say, can you see how this is stretching a little bit here? That's okay too. We're going to sew with really large, comfortable seam allowances at the end. This is not precision piecing. So sometimes it's probably because my pinning isn't that accurate. I'll get that little bit of a shift in the fabric as I'm sewing, and it's still going to be okay. Okay. Then, so now the zipper is sewn on one side. So now that we've done that, I'm going to take this top layer, I'm going to fold it back. Can I line them up here? And I just do that right away. I don't walk over to an ironing board or any other surface. I don't measure anything. And we're going to take the bottom and sandwich it on the other side of that zipper. And then we're going to pin this in place as well. And again, if you're a beginner and you're not super experienced sewing, if you're a little lazy like I am, or heaven forbid you have a glass of wine while you're doing this, because that's not what moms need sometimes, right? It's still going to be okay. So just chill out. when I do this, I always make, you know, a batch of bags at the same time. So I don't sit there and finish one entire bag like I'm doing now. I would do this same step for, you know, 8 or 10 bags or 6 bags, whatever I'm making in that fabric. And then, so I chain all of them, and I find that I can make, you know, a batch, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is, in probably about 3 hours. So like in an evening. It's kind of nice sense of accomplishment. Right? See how that's not super accurate right there? We're not going to worry about that. That's going to be completely hidden by the time we sew the side seams. So now we have this one going. I'm going to put that under again. Again, removing the pins. Okay, so now what you have, or should have, are these two, it doesn't look like a bag at all at this point, and we're going to take this over to the ironing table and get ready for the next step in the process. Okay, excuse me my ironing surface. I swear this cover is not more than a few months old, but it gets a lot of use, and it gets some water leaks and a lot of starch and so forth, so it looks a little trash. So what I'm going to do now, that you cannot iron the PUL, it will definitely melt. And but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down, and I'm kind of just going to decide where I want the zipper to be, you know, how far down the front of the bag. And it doesn't have to be terribly far down. And then so I basically try to stretch the fabric out a little bit so that I don't have, since I can't iron really close to the zipper because of the PUL. And then I'm going to just press myself, and I don't measure this. This is all just kind of by sight. Just kind of flip this over, and then make sure that this, and just give it a little bit of a press here. If you want to, you can starch this. I have been experimenting with the idea of using double gauze for these bags. I have some really pretty Nanny Eero double gauze, and that probably I would starch pretty heavily before trying to make bags with, but I think it would be really pretty. Anyways, so that's our next step. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get ready to sew the sides of our bag, and then we're pretty much done. Okay, so we're back from the ironing surface with this bagging process, and now we're going to pin the sides together so that we can sew our bags into its proper shape. And this is kind of cool. I always wonder with these zipper techniques who actually came up with them, because my brain is always equally excited when this actually works out. So anyways, so we're gonna pin the sides together, and this does not have to be super accurate. The sides here, we're gonna, if you end up with inaccuracies because maybe you're very inexperienced, or as I said, you just, you know, sometimes we all kind of bomb a little bit on our projects, you can just kind of increase your seam allowance on the side and trim it off. It's going to be perfectly fine. So very relaxing beginner project, and probably also a pretty good project to do with kids and let them kind of have the empowerment of making their own snack bags if you are so inclined. So I've now pinned the side where the zipper is, or the zipper bowl is. So we're gonna have to open that zipper up, because if you sew this closed with the zipper out here, you basically will not have a zipper that can open afterwards. So now after I pinned, so basically this zipper sides are being held in place, just pushing that down, grabbing it on the inside here, and pulling that zipper about halfway open. Okay, and then we're gonna go on the other side here, and we're gonna do the same, sort of pinning these layers together. And if you pull on the PUL, even though I cut it shorter, you can see it has some give to it and it actually ends up being longer. It somehow seems to expand a little bit. That's why I like to cut it a little bit shorter than the actual outer fabric of the bag. Okay, so now we have all our layers pinned together, and we're going to take this back to the sewing machine to sew the side seams. So we're getting ready to sew the sides. I will change my foot back from a zipper foot to a 1/4 inch foot on my machine. I mean, I guess technically you could keep using your zipper foot, but I prefer not to. And now we're going to sew the sides down. So this is the place where if you have like inaccuracies in things matching up on the sides, you can increase your seam allowance a little bit and then just trim it down afterwards. So you don't have to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So I typically work with something that's probably more like 3/8, just because. And this first side here, we're going to sew all the way down, and now we're going to fasten on top. And so all the way down. And also now fasten on the bottom. On the other side here, we're going to do something a little bit different. So we're going to start at the top again, fasten with a few fasten stitches. And you're going to sew down across your zipper. And see how I'm just kind of making my seam allowance a little wider here because I wasn't all that accurate in putting the layers together. So when I get to about right here, like, you know, I have probably about 3 inches, 2.5 inches or so left. I could probably do a little bit more. I'm going to reverse and cut the thread. And this is when we're making the opening for actually reversing our bag. I'm going to fold back the PUL, lower the foot back down, and I'm going to try to get my needle down really close to where I can see that last stitch right there. Fasten, and then sew all the way down, reverse, and tie off. So at this point, we're actually ready to reverse our bag. I'm gonna trim the zippers off. And then I'm also going to cut a little bit of the extra fabric off the corners. If you have really wide seam allowances here, you might want to trim them down a little bit, but I don't like having the zipper be cut too short because then it actually sticks out more and will actually eat its way through the outer side of the bag actually over time. So because it's kind of stiff. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we have this little hole in the PUL that we left, and we're going to reach in here, we're going to grab whatever we can get, the zipper in this case, and we're going to turn the whole bag out through there. So now you're seeing the PUL. I'm going to open it all the way up here, the zipper, to kind of just make it a little easier. I'm not going to turn it all the way yet. I'm going to close this opening now. And to do that, I like to pin. I just think it looks just a little bit neater in the end. So I put a pin there and then one pin right there, and then just gonna sew, top stitch that opening shut basically. Oops, okay, I should have probably fastened there, but oh well, it will be fine. And then I cut any loose threads off, and now your bag is pretty much open or done. So you turn it right side out, and then you can use a, let's see if I have one here. You can use a pair of scissors, you can use one of these corner gadgets. I have one somewhere, like a little bamboo point that is supposed to be specifically for pushing out corners with, but if you're gentle with your scissors, you can use your scissors. Now you're not supposed to iron PUL because it's supposedly melts, but I have found that I can give this a quick press on the outside here and the PUL will hold up just fine. I wouldn't leave the iron down very long, but I do tend to flatten them out when they're new so they look nice. So here is our little snack bag. So a little bit more envelope style, just to utilize the fabric that I had a little bit better, but still really useful. Pretzels, cookies, carrots, you know, whatever you're going to put in a school lunch. So I hope you feel inspired to make your own snack bags and make your family life a little bit less plastic dependent.